The Andy Griffith Show isn't just television. It is a portal to Mayberry, a black and white utopia, where life was simple and a whistling theme song became the anthem of a peaceful America. But turn off the cameras and the idyllic dream dissolves into a nightmare. Behind the gentle smiles of Sheriff Andy and Barney Fife lay a cursed reality of shattering health battles, agonizing physical decline, and shocking premature deaths that swept through the cast like a plague. The peace of Mayberry was a lie the actors couldn't live in. Join me as we uncover the tragic fates of the beloved citizens who have left us, discovering that even the happiest town on TV couldn't hide from the Grim Reaper. Andy Griffith, born on June 1, 1926, portrayed Andy Taylor in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1960. He stepped into the role of the wise sheriff at the age of 34, creating a utopia of small-town peace that would define American television for decades. However, the calm demeanor of Sheriff Taylor masked a shrewd and often ruthless businessman. Unlike his co-stars who worked for a paycheck, Griffith owned 50% of the show, a deal that allowed him to amass a fortune while his castmates fought for raises. While he was earning millions from syndication that continues to this day, his personal life was a chaotic storm of demons. He battled a volatile temper and alcoholism that starkly contrasted with his on-screen patience. And in 1983, he was struck down by Guillain-Barré syndrome, a terrifying disorder that left him paralyzed and in excruciating pain for months, forcing him to learn to walk again. But the deepest cut to his soul was the tragic death of his son, Sam, who struggled with substance abuse and died at the young age of 37, a failure of fatherhood that haunted Griffith until his final breath. He created the perfect father on TV but could not save his own child from the darkness of addiction. Andy Griffith passed away on July 3, 2012 from a heart attack at the age of 86, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $60 million. Andy ruled Mayberry with a velvet glove, but his deputy was a man of nervous energy who turned his childhood trauma into comedy gold, only to leave the show over a heartbreaking misunderstanding. Don Knotts, born on July 21, 1924, portrayed Barney Fife in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1960. Joining the cast at age 36, Knotts transformed a minor role into a comedic legend, winning 5 Emmy Awards. Yet, his financial compensation was surprisingly modest. He started at a salary of roughly $250 per episode, a figure that pales in comparison to the value he brought to the network. The tragedy of his departure in 1965 stems from a lack of faith. Believing the show would end after 5 seasons and denied an ownership stake by Griffith, he signed a movie contract with Universal for $35,000 per film to secure his family's future, only to watch the show continue without him. The nervous shaking of Barney Fife was not just acting. It was rooted in a horrific childhood where his mentally ill father would hold a knife to his throat, terrorizing him into a state of perpetual anxiety. Knotts spent his life battling severe hypochondria and a deep-seated lack of confidence, seeing himself as a sickly child rather than a star. In his final years, he lost his sight to macular degeneration, a cruel fate for a man whose expressive eyes were his greatest tool. Don Knotts passed away on February 24, 2006 from lung cancer and pneumonia at the age of 81, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $20 million. Don left the show to find security, but the woman who replaced the mother figure in Mayberry found herself trapped in a role she despised, dying alone in a house filled with cats and decay. Frances Bavier, born on December 14, 1902, portrayed Aunt B. Taylor in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1960. At the age of 58, Bavier took on the role of the warm apple pie baking matriarch, a character that became America's grandmother. However, the reality was a bitter contradiction. Bavier was a sophisticated New York stage actress who loathed the role, feeling it limited her artistic range, and reduced her to a domestic servant. Her salary was standard for a supporting character, estimated at $750 to $1,000 per episode, with no significant residuals, leaving her bitter as she watched Griffith grow rich. On set, she was notoriously difficult, famously hitting Andy Griffith with an umbrella in a fit of rage. Her post-Hollywood life was a descent into a gothic nightmare. She retired to Siler City, North Carolina, where she became a reclusive hoarder, living in a dark, decaying house with 14 cats and rarely speaking to anyone. The woman who represented community and family died in squalor and isolation, with only her cats for company, refusing to see her former castmates in her final years. Frances Bavier passed away on December 6, 1989, from a heart attack and cancer at the age of 86, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $700,000. Aunt Bee died in seclusion, but the man discovered by Andy to play the simple-minded mechanic became a massive superstar who was forced to hide his true self to survive. Jim Nabors, born on June 12, 1930, portrayed Gomer Pyle in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1962. Discovered by Andy Griffith in a nightclub, Nabors joined the show at age 32, earning a standard day player rate of around $500, before his immense popularity led to a salary bump and his own spin-off. While Gomer Pyle USMC made him a wealthy man, earning him over $40,000 per week at its peak, Nabors lived in a state of constant, terrified silence. As a gay man in the 1960s, he knew that one slip-up would destroy his career and his life. He endured a humiliating public scandal involving a fake marriage rumor to Rock Hudson that nearly blacklisted him, forcing him to retreat from the public eye to protect his secret. Behind the goofy smile and the southern drawl was a man battling severe health issues. In 1994, he underwent a life-saving liver transplant after contracting hepatitis B from a razor cut a brush with death that left him frail. He spent decades hiding his love, finally marrying his partner of 38 years just before he died. Jim Nabors passed away on November 30, 2017, from natural causes and immune system decline at the age of 87, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $25 million. Jim escaped the trap of Mayberry to find his own fame, but his on-screen cousin inherited the beanie and found himself imprisoned by the very character that gave him a career. George Lindsey, born on December 17, 1928, portrayed Goober Pyle in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1964. Lindsey was brought in at age 36 to fill the void left by Gomer, taking on the role of the dim-witted mechanic. A former high school teacher and a serious thespian, Lindsey found himself typecast into oblivion. His salary was a standard supporting wage, but the cost was his artistic soul. He wore the Goober beanie for nearly 30 years, appearing in Hee Haw long after Mayberry closed. While he was grateful for the work, he suffered from a deep depression, knowing that the industry and the public thought he was actually stupid, ignoring his intelligence and dramatic training. He was the clown who cried on the inside, trapped in a caricature that paid the bills but stifled his potential. He watched as his peers moved on to diverse roles, while he was forced to tell the same jokes for decades to maintain his livelihood. The beanie became both his crown and his cage. George Lindsey passed away on May 6, 2012 from heart failure at the age of 83, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $2 million. Goober wore the mask of a fool. But our next guest was the schoolteacher who captured the sheriff's heart, engaging in a forbidden backstage romance that complicated the entire production. Aneta Corsaut, born on November 3, 1933, portrayed Helen Crump in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1963 at 30. Entering the series as the schoolteacher who finally captured the sheriff's heart, Corsaut became the quintessential television girlfriend, but her on-screen romance masked a scandalous and painful off-screen reality. While she earned a standard supporting salary estimated at roughly $500 to $750 per episode, a fraction of the wealth Griffith was accumulating as the show's owner, her true payment was the emotional toll of a forbidden love. It was an open secret on set that Corsaut and Griffith were engaged in a passionate long-term affair, while Griffith was married to his first wife, Barbara. Corsaut played the dutiful girlfriend on camera, but in reality, she was the other woman, trapped in a relationship that could never be public without destroying Griffith's wholesome image. She reportedly waited for him never marrying or having children of her own, sacrificing her personal life for a man who belonged to someone else. She remained in Griffith's orbit for decades, reprising her role in spin-offs, forever tethered to the man who defined her career, but could not fully commit to her. Her tragedy was one of silence. She kept the secrets of Mayberry's king until the end, dying just days before a planned cast reunion, denying fans the chance to say goodbye. Aneta Corsaut passed away on November 6, 1995 from cancer at the age of 62, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $3 million. Aneta played the woman who won Andy's heart, but the actress who played Barney's soulmate was left heartbroken by the studio earning a paycheck so small it was an insult to her loyalty. Lynn, born on August 29, 1926, portrayed Thelma Lou in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1961 at 35. As the sweet, giggling girlfriend of Barney Fife, Lynn was a fan favorite who provided the emotional anchor for Don Knotts' manic energy. However, the financial reality of her time in Mayberry was shockingly exploitative. Despite appearing in 26 episodes and being crucial to the show's most popular subplot, Lynn was paid a meager $500 per episode, a sum that barely covered living expenses in Hollywood. When Don Knotts left the show in 1965, the producers callously discarded her, refusing to offer her a contract or a raise to stay on as a regular character without him. She was effectively fired because her on-screen boyfriend quit, a brutal reminder of how disposable women were in 1960s television. She carried the pain of that rejection for decades, eventually moving to Mount Airy, North Carolina, the real-life Mayberry in her later years, where she lived as a living museum exhibit of the characters she played. She spent her final days signing autographs for strangers trapped in the shadow of a role that paid her pennies, finding comfort in the fantasy of the town because the reality of Hollywood had been too cold. Lynn passed away on October 16, 2021 from natural causes at the age of 95, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $3 million. Betty was the sweet girl next door, but our next resident was the town drunk whose comedic stumbling hit a sober man fighting against a stereotype that ruined his career. Hal Smith, born on August 24, 1916, portrayed Otis Campbell in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1960 at 44. Smith created one of the most iconic characters in television history as Otis, the lovable town drunk who locked himself in jail. The irony of his life was profound. Smith was a teetotaler in real life who rarely drank, yet he played intoxication with such convincing brilliance that it destroyed his dramatic career. For his recurring role, he earned a standard fee of approximately $500 to $700 per episode, but the Otis curse cost him thousands in lost future wages. Casting directors refused to hire him for serious roles, unable to see past the bumbling drunkard, forcing him to retreat into voice acting for cartoons like Winnie the Pooh to survive. He was a man of immense talent, trapped in a single caricature, unable to escape the jail cell he built for himself. Later in life, after the death of his beloved wife, Louise, Smith's health declined rapidly, and the loneliness of his final years stood in stark contrast to the jovial character he played. He died holding the legacy of a man he wasn't remembered as a drunk, despite living a sober, hard-working life. Hal Smith passed away on January 28, 1994, from a heart attack at the age of 77, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $5 million, largely from his prolific voice work. Otis was the quiet drunk who hurt no one, but our next character was a chaotic force of nature, a rock-throwing wild man played by a genius who felt trapped by his own creation. Howard Morris, born on September 4, 1919, portrayed Ernest T. Bass in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1963 at 44. It is a testament to Morris's electric performance that although he only appeared in 5 episodes, he is remembered as a series regular. A brilliant director and sketch comedian who worked with Sid Caesar Morris brought a manic, unhinged energy to the show. However, his compensation for acting was the standard union scale of the time, roughly $750 per episode, a figure that was laughable compared to the cultural impact of his character. Morris was a comedic genius who directed the pilot of Get Smart, yet he lived with the frustration that the world only saw him as the hillbilly who threw rocks through windows. He struggled with the clown's burden, feeling that his intellectual contributions to cinema were overshadowed by his goofiest role. In his later years, he battled heart problems and the inevitable fading of the variety show era that had birthed his career. He was a man of sophisticated wit, forced to play a primitive fool to be remembered carrying a quiet resentment that his brain was ignored in favor of his pratfalls. Howard Morris passed away on May 21, 2005, from heart failure at the age of 85, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $10 million. Ernest T. Bass was a loudmouthed rebel, but our next citizen was a gentle soul, a mama's boy whose quiet life on screen ended with a silent death that shocked the cast. Jack Dodson, born on May 16, 1931, portrayed Howard Sprague in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1966 at 35. Dodson was a serious Broadway actor brought to Mayberry to play the county clerk, a character defined by his blandness and domination by his mother. Entering the show in its later color years, Dodson earned a steady recurring salary of approximately $1,000 per episode, finding financial stability that the theater could not provide. However, the role of the nerd locked him into a typecast from which he never escaped. He became the eternal Howard Sprague, unable to showcase the dramatic range he possessed. He was a man of deep dignity who played a man with none. His personal tragedy struck swiftly and silently. Known for his clean living and professionalism, his heart failed him without warning. He died in his sleep while visiting New York, far from the Hollywood sound stages, a sudden exit that left his close friend Andy Griffith devastated. He was the quintessential background player who made the world feel real, only to vanish into the night, his contributions often overlooked until he was gone. Jack Dodson passed away on September 16, 1994, from heart failure at the age of 63, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $2 million. Howard Sprague was the target of town gossip, but our next character was the source of it, a woman whose sweet smile hid the sharpest tongue in Mayberry. Hope Summers, born on June 7, 1902, portrayed Clara Edwards in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1961 at 59. As the pickle-winning, gossip-mongering best friend of Aunt B. Summers, became an integral thread in the social fabric of Mayberry, appearing in over 30 episodes. Despite her character's prominence as the town's social arbiter, Summers was a working-class character actress whose financial compensation was shockingly modest. In the early 1960s, a recurring role of her stature commanded a day player fee of approximately $350 to $500 per episode, a sum that barely reflected her decades of experience as a one-woman touring theatrical powerhouse. While Clara Edwards judged the morals of the town, Summers herself lived the precarious life of an aging actress in a youth-obsessed industry, fighting for screen time without the security of a regular contract. She was a woman of immense sophistication and culture who was often reduced to playing the provincial busybody, a mask she wore to survive in Hollywood. Her tragedy was the quiet, inevitable fading of a career that spanned the vaudeville era to television. She worked until the very end, often unrecognized for her dramatic range, simply known as Aunt Bee's friend. She died just as the show was entering its immortality and syndication, missing out on the financial legacy she helped build. Hope Summers passed away on June 27, 1979, from heart failure at the age of 77, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $1 million. Clara was the voice of the town, but our next resident was a Broadway legend brought in to fix the silence left by a beloved character, only to find the burden of replacement too heavy to bear. Paul Hartman, born on March 1, 1904, portrayed Emmett Clark in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1967 at 63. Hartman joined the cast in the show's twilight years, tasked with the impossible job of filling the void left by the ailing Howard McNear. A Tony Award-winning dancer and Broadway star in the 1940s, Hartman's descent into a sitcom repairman role highlighted the cruel trajectory of show business fame. For his role as the fix-it shop owner, he likely earned a recurring salary of $750 to $1,000 per episode, a respectable blue-collar wage for a man who had once seen his name in lights on the Great White Way. His time in Mayberry was marked by the melancholy of being the replacement, a talented performer living in the shadow of the characters the audience missed. He brought a gentle, weary dignity to Emmett, reflecting his own career fatigue. Tragically, he did not live long enough to enjoy a retirement funded by his years of hustle. He died of a heart attack just a few years after the spin-off Mayberry RFD ended. The man who had danced for applause spent his final years fixing toasters on a soundstage, a quiet end for a theatrical giant. Paul Hartman passed away on October 2, 1973, from a heart attack at the age of 69, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $1.5 million. Emmett tried to fix things, but our next officer was a casting disaster who tried to replace a legend, leading to a humiliation that haunted his career forever. Jack Burns, born on November 15, 1933, portrayed Deputy Warren Ferguson in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1965 at 32. Brought in to replace the irreplaceable Don Knotts Burns, was thrust into a no-win situation that would define his career by failure. A brilliant stand-up comic and former partner of George Carlin Burns, was paid a standard starting salary of roughly $600 per episode to be the new comic relief. However, the audience reaction was vicious. Viewers despised Warren Ferguson, viewing him as an unfunny intruder in their beloved town. After only 11 episodes, he was unceremoniously fired and written out without explanation, a public humiliation that few actors ever recover from. The pain of being the man who ruined the dynamic was a burden he carried for decades, overshadowing his later success as a writer and producer for The Muppet Show. He spent his life proving he was funny, fighting against the ghost of a character that America hated. His later years were a quiet battle against declining health, far removed from the spotlight that had burned him so badly in the 60s. Jack Burns passed away on January 27, 2020, from respiratory failure and cancer at the age of 86, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $3 million. Warren was the deputy who couldn't enforce the law, but our next official was a mayor whose arrogance on screen masked a painful physical decline off-screen. Parley Baer, born on August 5, 1914, portrayed Mayor Roy Stoner in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1962 at 48. A veteran of radio who famously played Chester on Gunsmoke Bear brought a pompous, bureaucratic antagonism to Mayberry as the mayor who constantly clashed with Sheriff Taylor. Despite his extensive resume and status as a Hollywood staple, his compensation for the recurring role was a standard guest fee of approximately $500 to $750 per episode. Baer was the consummate professional and animal trainer and circus publicist in his spare time, but his toughness was tested by a series of health crises in his later years. In 1997, he suffered a massive stroke that severely impaired his speech, a devastating blow for an actor whose voice was his livelihood. He spent his final years fighting to regain his faculties, a slow and agonizing battle for dignity. The man who played the officious authority figure was reduced to dependency, trapped in a body that could no longer command the room. He died from complications of the stroke, a silenced voice that had once been a pillar of American broadcasting. Parley Baer passed away on November 22, 2002, from stroke complications at the age of 88, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $2 million. Mayor Stoner demanded respect, but he was preceded by a mayor whose gentle soul and sudden death left a void in the very foundation of the series. Dick Elliot, born on April 30, 1886, portrayed Mayor Pike in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1960 at 74. A rotund, jovial character actor who had been working since the 1930s, Elliot embodied the innocent, bumbling nature of early Mayberry. He appeared in the classic black and white episodes, earning a modest day player rate of roughly $300 to $400 per appearance. However, Elliot represents the tragedy of timing. He helped establish the tone of a legendary series, but died before he could reap any of the long-term rewards. He passed away during the show's second season, abruptly vanishing from the town he helped govern. There was no grand send-off, no memorial episode. The show simply moved on, replacing him with a new mayor. He was a working actor who died in the harness, his contribution immortalized on film, but his name largely forgotten by the casual viewer. He represents the generation of actors who built the golden age of television but didn't live long enough to see it become a global phenomenon. Dick Elliott passed away on December 22, 1961, from natural causes at the age of 75, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $500,000. Mayor Pike was a soft touch, but our next citizen was a tough guy from the city whose menacing face hid a beloved voice that children adored. Alan Melvin, born on February 18, 1923, portrayed Clarence Doc Malloy in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1962 at 39. With a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite, Melvin was Hollywood's go-to tough guy, appearing in everything from The Brady Bunch to All in the Family. In Mayberry, he played the heavy, earning a recurring guest fee of approximately $600 per episode. Yet the contrast in his career was startling. The man who played menacing thugs was also the voice of the lovable Magilla gorilla in cartoons. Despite his ubiquity on television, he was a journeyman who lived comfortably but never extravagantly, always chasing the next gig. His personal tragedy was a long, grueling battle with cancer in his final years, a disease that withered the imposing physical presence that had defined his career. He was the quintessential supporting player, the face you knew but the name you couldn't place, who died after a lifetime of making others look like heroes. He fought his illness with the same stoicism he brought to his roles, fading away as the industry shifted to younger faces. Alan Melvin passed away on January 17, 2008 from cancer at the age of 84, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $4 million. Doc Malloy was a tough guy on the surface, But our next resident was a gentle wife whose quiet presence in the background hid the struggle of a working actress fighting for every line. Mary Lansing, born on June 10, 1911, portrayed Martha Clark in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1962 at 51. As the wife of the Fix-It Man, Emmett Clark Lansing was a recurring presence in the color episodes of the series, bringing a grounded domestic reality to the whimsical town. However, her career path illustrates the often unrewarding life of the reliable Hollywood actress who never breaks through to stardom. Despite appearing in classic shows like The Twilight Zone and Dragnet, her role in Mayberry was that of a glorified background player, with lines earning a standard day player rate that likely capped at $350 to $400 per appearance. While the main cast negotiated syndication deals and salary bumps, Lansing was a hired gun, paid for her time on set, and nothing more, receiving zero financial benefit from the show's enduring legacy. She represented the invisible workforce of the industry, the actors who populate the world, to make the stars shine brighter, yet remain perpetually in the shadows of financial insecurity. Her personal life was devoid of the flashy scandals that sell tabloids, which ironically contributed to her obscurity. She was simply a working woman in a brutal industry. She continued to work in small roles until her death, never achieving the fame or fortune that her talent warranted. Mary Lansing passed away on September 30th, 1988 from cancer at the age of 77, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $500,000. Mary played the wife in the background, but our next resident was a man whose bloodline connected him to the very top of the production, even if his face remained just another one in the crowd. Tom Jacobs, born on January 1st, 1903, portrayed a townsman in the series The Andy Griffith Show in 1960 at 57. To the casual viewer, Jacobs was just another face on the streets of Mayberry, an uncredited extra who filled the background of the barber shop or the courthouse. However, his presence on set concealed a fascinating Hollywood secret. He was the real-life brother of Danny Thomas, the legendary entertainer whose production company produced the show. Despite this powerful family connection, Jacobs did not receive a cushioned executive role or a high-paying star vehicle. Instead, he worked for the standard extras union scale, likely earning around $250 per day. This disparity paints a picture of a man living in the colossal shadow of his sibling, a humble figure who was content to be a part of the family business from the bottom rung rather than the top. While Danny Thomas was building a media empire and founding St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, Tom was quietly sipping coffee in the background of a sitcom, a poignant reminder that talent and destiny are not always distributed equally within a family. He died relatively quietly, his contribution to television history noted only by the most dedicated archivists. Tom Jacobs passed away on April 12, 1976, from heart failure at the age of 73, leaving behind an estimated net worth of $400,000. The credits may roll, but for the cast of The Andy Griffith Show, the darkness didn't end when the director yelled, "Cut." It lingers, a chilling reminder that fame often comes with a terrible price. Now, I turn the question to you. Was this truly a sinister curse that hunted them down one by one, or just a series of cruel coincidences? Whisper your theories in the comments below. I read everything. If you have the courage to uncover more of Hollywood's buried secrets and blood-stained legacies, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell into the darkness. Until next time, remember, the truth is often scarier than fiction. Goodbye.